Hey, my name is Ben Lyons, and this is Real Fan Life.
My neighbors, that was unscripted.
On this show, we're going to profile some of the biggest names in sports. Dwight Howard, Paul Pierce, LaDainian Tomlinson, Michael Strahan. Did someone just host a national television show so they're a little jacked up? And show fans a side of them that they've never seen before.
It wasn't worth the fallout to get the record.
We get up close and personal with some of the biggest sports fans across the country. I got fans from all over the world.
Oh, yeah.
It's a show for fans, by a fan.
I live the real fan life.
All right. What's up, guys? All right. How you doing? This is fun.
All right. Thanks for coming, guys. Ben, thank you for coming, man.
Oh, man, this is awesome. I'm a huge sports fan, obviously. So the fact that I get to hang out with some of the biggest athletes in the world for the Players Tribune with AOL is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, in the eyes of big sports fans, like, you really are living the life, you know? So it's, like, crazy how you've been able to turn this show, really bring it to life, like every big sports fan's dreams. Do you wake up and pinch yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still a Knicks fan, so I wake up from nightmares. But I do, you know. Paul Pierce is somebody who's broken my heart so many times. Like, I've left the Garden so mad at Paul Pierce, and then to actually get a chance to hang out with him, see his house, meet his family, you realize that there's a difference in rooting against people in the games they play and then rooting for them in the game of life, which I think is hard for some fans to kind of make that distinction. But when here's a kid from Inglewood, California, who now is in Calabasas, has a bowling alley in his house, like, he's winning, he's doing fine. So I think that guys like that, and even Dwight Howard, you know, has been ridiculed a lot and been heckled a lot. I think they appreciate when they can show to fans that they're they're a human being too, and they're not just names on our DraftKings and fantasy FanDuel and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's definitely a dream come true, man. I made Paul Pierce do push-ups. Like, it's so ridiculous. Like, he's broken my heart so many times.
Yeah. What's great about the show, too, in my opinion, is that it kind of, you know, so many people have seen just through television or reading the papers or online or whatever, is that, you know, reporters get to speak with athletes all the time, but there's such a difference between speaking with someone and having an actual conversation. You know, like, how often do we get to really know the athletes that we watch on TV every night? So for you, have you been pleasantly surprised at how some athletes have been so kind or generous with their time, things like that?
You know, over the years in different jobs I've had, I've learned that the location and the setting for an interview can often dictate what you get out of the interview. Imagine you're out there competing at the highest level, highest pressure environment you can think of, and you miss the last second shot, and 20 seconds later, there's some guy who looks like me who sticks a mic in your face and is like, tell me why you missed it. Why didn't you pass it? Why didn't you call it? That's like a really intense environment. And so what I love is that we don't get the guys in traditional settings. We don't get them in the locker room or at halftime or stuff. We're at their homes. We're in the gym with them. We're on, you know, the golf course. We're out there where you can actually, like you said, have a conversation. And it's such a different tone to that kind of give and take, I think.
When you guys first started thinking about this show and trying to conceptualize the great idea and all that, you know, how did all that start? How did that process go down?
I've always been a real fan who was lucky enough to have real access. My father was very close with the Boston Red Sox manager in the 1980s named Joe Morgan. And we'd go to Fenway, and I remember being 9, 10 years old, and I'd be on the field talking to the guys about batting practice and, you know, their off-season workouts and stuff. I was 10 years old. I was the same person I am now. So it was this idea of being a real fan, but having real access. And then also not just profiling the athletes, but you saw in that trailer there, you saw Clipper Darrell, my guy in LA with the suit. And then we were outside the Garden, and there were all these fans from China who had flown in to see the Spurs. And to spotlight like the passion that those people have as well, that we have as fans, I thought was really cool. So basically kind of taking these in-the-field pieces and then connecting them with real fans, that is sort of where the idea began.
You've been so involved with the Players Tribune success so far over the last year or two. You know, the Players Tribune, it's such an interesting concept how, you know, it's taken media and kind of flipped it on its head where, you know, you have the athletes, you know, presenting their message or conveying whatever they want to convey themselves. You know, they don't have the medium of a reporter. You know, and a lot of people have wondered is this a bad thing or is this a good thing? What's your take on that? And are you surprised at the positive reception that the company has gotten?
I don't think it's a bad thing as long as the athletes continue to be genuine. There's not a kind of hidden agenda really with the posts they've been putting up. They really have passionate opinions about the stories they want to tell and things they want to connect with their audience and their fans for. I love it for not just the A-list stars, and we've had a bunch, but I love it for kind of the second and third tier guys, because you get maybe a 30-second soundbite from them on traditional sports media. You don't actually get a chance to hear their story, learn what they've overcome. There's a guy named Andrew Hawkins, who's a wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. This dude had to put weights in his pockets at weigh-ins to be heavier so he would get drafted. He created false scouting reports just to get a look. Like, he went through so much just to make the NFL. Now in his offseason, instead of going to Cabo and Vegas like some of the other athletes, he's uptown at Columbia in graduate school. And he makes the commute from Florida every week to go to classes at Columbia. And now when I turn on a Cleveland Browns game, like, I'm rooting for Andrew Hawkins, and it's really cool to hear his story. So for those kind of often forgotten stars in the leagues, I think it's a great platform. And it's just been amazing to see people like Kevin Durant really embrace what we're doing. And we got Kevin a media pass for the Super Bowl, and he's aspirations of being a photographer in addition to being one of the great basketball players in the world. So he went on the field at Super Bowl 50, did a bunch of shots, and then afterwards wrote in the Players Tribune. What those guys do is really hard. Like, I have a whole new respect for sideline photography now. So we're bridging the gap, I think, between athletes and media in a way that it hasn't been done.
Yeah. Now, on the site, a lot of the articles that we read are more on the serious side, right? But then you look at real fan life, and it's so much
You're
fun.
a clown, so is what you're saying. Yeah, thanks.
No, but it's like there's such a juxtaposition. Like, was that the goal? To show a completely different side of athletes, like not just the serious side of guys who want to talk about their feelings on politics or family or whatever. Like, it's, they could joke around.
Want to have some fun. Sports are fun at the end of the day. It's fun being a fan, unless you're a Knicks fan. It's fun being a fan, and we wanted to really kind of capture that. And you're right, so a lot of the stuff is pretty serious. We've tackled mental health issues when people retire, the psychological effects on that. I mean, we all kind of subscribe to the American dream where our future success is still in front of us. But imagine you're 34 years old and the person who you've become and you're identified with, your social status, like, that's done. Like, you'll never make the money you made at 34 again. Like, that's kind of a weird way to enter the world. So the guys have been very open in expressing the difficulties in post-retirement. So yeah, a lot of like heavy stuff. So we're like, let's just get Ben in front of some snakes and Dwight Howard and see it get weird. So that's what happened, yeah.
Yeah, so on the show and just your interactions with other athletes off the cameras, what's the weirdest thing that you've come across?
Dwight Howard having 10 exotic snakes in his house. Several of them don't have cages. They just roam freely in his house. And he said to me, he goes, I really wanted to be a zoologist. Growing up, I wanted to be a zoologist. I would go to the zoo with my mom. And then all of a sudden, I became 7 feet tall and 290 pounds, and I have to go dunk a basketball now for a living. So it's really cool to hear somebody you would never think has this other passion be knowledgeable and know the history of snakes. And that, to me, was the most surprising. And it was like such an ominous day in Houston. It was like a thunderstorm, and we're in the middle of nowhere at Dwight's house. And I just was looking around like, okay, if a snake bites me in the face, like, Dwight Howard's in charge right now? Like, that's what's going to happen? So that was a weird one for sure.
What about who's the funniest athlete you've come across?
Dwight does some great impressions. He does a Hakeem Olajuwon that's hilarious. LT, I think, had fun just making me work out. Like, he got a laugh out of that. LaDainian Tomlinson, who is literally just a rock. Like, he's just a compacted man. He is still in game shape, and he's got a great personality. Football players, we don't really get a chance to know them the same way we do basketball players or baseball players. You can't see them, especially LT had that visor on his helmet all those years, and actually get a chance to hear him. He's a funny dude. I like LaDainian Tomlinson a lot.
One of my favorite episodes of the first season is the one where you're with LaMarcus Aldridge, the forward on the Spurs, and you actually get to check out his car collection and go for a ride. And I know you tried changing the station on the radio, and he kind of slapped you away. But other than that, How cool is that? And what was your favorite car out of that collection?
He's another one, LaMarcus, who's been in the league 9 years. He's a multiple-time All-Star. Played up in Portland for his first part of his career, and fans don't really know him. You don't really know his personality or his sense of humor. So to go down in his new home in San Antonio and hang out, that was another one where you're like, oh, this guy's got a lot going on here. That giant Rolls Royce. I'm not a car guy. I grew up here in New York City. I didn't get a license until I moved to LA. I was like 25. I still ride the subway. Like I'm not like my parents had a minivan. I'm not like a car guy. You get in one of those like Rolls Royce Phantoms and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Like I totally worth it. And I just also love when you chat with these athletes and you say, hey, like, what's a sensible car for a rookie in the NBA? And he's like, oh, the new Range Rover is $80,000. Like it's very sensible, like to go to Whole Foods in. But yeah, that Rolls Royce was pretty sick.
I thought it was great too that he kind of outed Robin Lopez for having the worst car collection in the NBA. Right?
Let's go Knicks. Starting center. Worst car in the NBA.
You got to be honest with me. Were you ever starstruck by interviewing someone?
I get overly excited. I'm not really somebody who gets starstruck, but if there's certain athletes, I was at Toronto the other night and I interviewed Bismack Biyombo. Like I don't know if anybody knows any big Bismack Biyombo fans in that. Love that guy. Like huge fan of Bismack Biyombo. Yes, I interviewed Kobe Bryant and Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook, but Bismack Biyombo, like that was a big deal for me. And same for you, I would imagine, Brian. When you have people who come on this stage, it doesn't necessarily have to be the biggest star for everyone else, but if it's somebody from your childhood or somebody from your team or something, then you get maybe overtly excited. I was super fired up to spend time with my good friend Jalen Rose, who's got the Jalen Rose Leadership Academy out in Detroit. He founded a charter school, which is amazing, and we played golf and talked about the school. So that's always, I get a kick out of spending time with him just because somebody I've known for a long time. I went to Michigan, Fab Five, the Big Shorts, the whole thing, and the fact that we can now talk as friends and peers, I always get a little excited for that.
As a New Yorker, it must be really cool to say that you're actually co-workers with Derek Jeter. In getting
My father's a diehard Red Sox fan, so that has not gone over well in our house.
I can imagine. In the process of getting this off the ground and making it such a rousing success, how accessible has Derek been to you, and has he really helped the newsroom and the whole process along?
Yeah, it's amazing how accessible he is, how much he enjoys working with the community of athletes. When this company was announced the day after he retired, he was our first post. People were kind of like, is this a Derek Jeter website? And I think he's done a really great job of kind of publicly letting the site speak for itself and the athletes kind of shine. But behind the scenes, he's involved. I mean, he's in our Secret Santa in the office. He's like, I've never done a Secret Santa before. I was like, really? The 98 Yankees didn't give out like gifts under $25 in the locker room? But he's super involved and he's there and he loves great storytelling. I mean, our hockey coverage is huge, and the stuff we've been doing with Michigan, thanks in large part to him and his relationships with the school, have been really cool. I think he's enjoying this kind of second act in his life.
Well, it seems like you're really enjoying yourself. Obviously, we see it in the episodes. But take me back to the start of your career. I know it's very impressive, how your journey has kind of unraveled. You got out of school, started your own production company, had a lot of success in the entertainment industry, and now have kind of, worked your way into being what some people are calling the voice of the fan. So you clearly had an awesome journey. Coming out of school, did you know, what you want to do exactly? Or, are you kind of surprised that your path is kind of
First of all, thank you for doing your research. I appreciate that. But no, I left college early and I just wanted to work. I just wanted to do anything. I was managing rappers, producing videos. I was hosting things. I was I just wanted to do anything. And slowly but surely kind of found my path and have really gotten to this place now where I love when sports and entertainment truly mix. Whether it's a show like Real Fan Life on the Players Tribune, or I'm an executive producer on a film called Spaceman, starring Josh Duhamel, where he plays real-life Major League pitcher Bill Lee, who in the 70s was playing for the Red Sox in the Expos and was on the cover of High Times at the same time, which is kind of amazing. So Josh plays Bill, and I'm an EP on that, so I'm helping that kind of see an audience. So I love when the two worlds converge now. But to answer your question, when I got started, I had no idea that I'd be bowling with Paul Pierce. Like, he was still in the NBA back then, which is crazy.
But for anybody that's young or in college that has dreams of being someone of your stature, what advice would you give them?
Dream bigger, first of all. And I would say you have to trust your voice. People say trust your gut, but in our business, it's about trusting your voice. So if you get up on a stage and there's something in the teleprompter that you didn't write and you don't feel comfortable saying, then don't say it. Really own your own voice. There's great power in that. And so you'll know through experience, you know what? I probably shouldn't host this pilot for an animal dog show because I'm afraid of dogs. You know what I mean? You'll know your own voice. You want to work and you want to do jobs, but I think the more you can kind of be in tune with, making that 15-year-old version of yourself proud, you'll be fine.
Now, I know you come from a very impressive lineage, media stars, with your father and your grandfather are also in the business and very successful. Did that kind of plant the seed at all where you saw, how they went to work and how they conducted themselves? Was it kind of like when you were little, you said, oh, that's really cool, I want to do that? Or did you really just discover a passion for this totally on your own?
My father's a film critic here in New York for over 40 years, and his father, my grandfather, wrote for the New York Post 6 days a week. He had his own column called The Lyons Den. So our family, as you said, have been doing this for 85 years, 90 years. And I did see from my dad the value of research. That's why I noticed when you just did that and had done your stuff, I could see my dad prepare before, AOL and the internet and all this stuff. And he would have the questions that nobody else would ask. And my grandfather was very well researched. I've read his 12,000 columns, and he just knew his stuff. So I kind of grew up around it. I remember my dad was playing in a charity softball game, and I just seen Saving Private Ryan, and Ed Burns was in the softball game. And being 12 years old, I sat in the dugout, and I probably interviewed Ed Burns for 2 hours, just asking him about the movie. And that experience of seeing a film and then talking with the person who helped make the movie at that young age kind of stayed with me. So I think my mom always says it too. She's like, you just kind of grew up around the life. It's not as big a deal as, say, if you were coming in from out of town and just getting started in college. I remember, actors calling the house or getting to go to interviews or shoots or talk to broadcasters. My dad's friends with a lot of radio people in sports that we would talk to, and I'd sit in the booth and just, see the business from the inside. So I don't know if it inspired me to want to do the same thing, but I guess it kind of worked out, and here we are.
Yeah. For somebody who's had the rare opportunity to be entrenched in both the entertainment side of media, but then also the sports side, how do they differ and how are they the same?
It's interesting. I think actors can be a little more guarded. When you watch Jake Gyllenhaal on screen, he wants you to lose yourself in his performance, not think about what he ate for lunch and who he's dating. Right? There's this kind of weird dance with actors where they don't want to reveal a lot and they want to stay, have some stuff for themselves. Athletes, we see their work and we judge them right there, and there's a lot more transparency, I think, with most athletes and fans. And that's what the Tribune's done an awesome job at doing, is just allowing these guys to be themselves, tell their side of the story. When Blake Griffin tells a very personal story about being a rookie in LA and going to weird parties with Donald Sterling, that takes you inside his world in a way that, I don't think movie stars really kind of welcome you in that same way.
Is this the most fulfilling job you've had simply because of the stories that have inspired you?
I mean, to say, hey, let's go down to LaMarcus Aldridge's house in San Antonio and get to know him a little bit, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, the show in particular, but also the company, the Players Tribune, just as a sports fan, I love seeing it as part of the conversation. People, when we first dropped, were like, well, how are they going to compete with ESPN? Or we're not doing highlights, we're not doing stats, we're not doing a post-game, pre-game show. We're just providing content for sports fans to engage with their favorite athletes in a way that I think complements an ESPN. So now when you watch a Knicks game on a Friday night, you feel like you know the players a little bit more. So I think that's been incredibly fulfilling. Yeah.
Well, we've watched the Players Tribune grow so much over the last year. What do you think's next for you guys?
Man, I think we'll continue our community of athletes. Hopefully we'll have more projects like Real Fan Life and Video Space. And yeah, it's just and it's been really cool to watch a startup grow that has some real people behind it and some interesting people behind it. So I have no idea what the next year is going to entail, but I'm sure it's going to be awesome.
And one final question for you before we'll open up to the audience for some questions. But somebody who has writing in their genes, clearly you're a great storyteller. You do it for a living. And you've had so many great stories that are seen in episodes of Real Fan Life, but also ones that probably people don't even know yet. Have you ever thought about writing a book someday in the future?
Yeah, I'm working on something. I see my dad had a lot of success with writing books. He just wrote one recently about his father and the experiences he had growing up, and some of his grandfather's stories and stuff. Yeah, I'd love to put it all together, but I just, I got bowling matches and snakes and stuff. I just have to find the time.
You're too busy with that right now.
No, but I'd love to, absolutely.
Nice. All right, guys, do we have any questions from the audience?
Ben.
Hi.
Thanks for coming in today. So you mentioned the snake experience that you had with the celebrity. For your research method, how deep do you go to try to find the inside secrets of these celebrities, or do you like to just walk in and be surprised?
It's funny, thank you for your question. People ask me about research, and I feel like instead of crashing for an interview, like I didn't need to for 2 days, like learn everything about Dwight Howard. I just know everything about Dwight Howard, just from consuming culture and watching games and reading articles. So it's not really a crash research as much as it is just kind of a constant, collecting information and tidbits and stuff. Like I knew everything about. I could ask him about the slam dunk contest because like I was at the slam dunk. You know what I mean? So you just kind of know it, and then it comes up. Yeah.
Hey Ben, thanks for being here. Huge fan. I myself am a New Yorker, born and raised, but my family's from New England. So I never had to choose. I actually, was raised Red Sox fan, Bruins fan, Celtics, everything, Patriots fan. Do you recall a time where you had to like choose, and was this difficult for you being around your friends, choosing between your friends and your dad?
You're so right. It's really amazing, and this is what this show too is about, just how personal that choice, that life choice you make as a young sports fan, and how it can stay with you. My father grew up on the Upper West Side, but is this huge Red Sox fan. He quotes a French philosopher who says that heart has reason that reason itself knows nothing about. Like, he's in it. So that was like his thing. I remember him passed out in the shower after the Bill Buckner game in '86. I was 5. My dad was in the fetal position in the shower. So I could never root for the Yankees growing up. That would just be mean. Like, that would just, what's the point of that? And it's not the same Red Sox that now of all your World Series. Like, he's got 3 World Series in 10 years. He doesn't know what to do with himself. So much of his life was defined by losing. So I think growing up, I looked up to my dad. So I was like, oh, the out-of-town sports thing is cool. So I loved Randall Cunningham. So I became a big Philadelphia Eagles fan, which here in New York does not go over well with police officers, construction workers, fans, Michael Strahan. And now I'm at this weird line in the sand where I've not been happy with my Eagles the last couple years, and the Rams just came to LA, and I live in LA, and I don't know. I gotta go on some weird journey in the desert and figure it out. But I think I might be making that move to be a Rams fan.
Hi Ben, how are you?
Hi.
I was wondering, did you, besides your family and all of those inspirations, did you look up to any other broadcasters, whether on ESPN or SportsCenter or sports radio, anyone like that?
Yeah, the late Stuart Scott obviously was somebody that really I feel like connected with me. He came on, and again, we talked about owning your own voice. Nobody owned their voice like Stuart, And my dad's best friend is a guy named Joe Castiglione, who's the voice of the Red Sox for 30 years plus. And I spent a lot of time with Joe as a kid and saw his research. I mean, every player, every stat, it was all in front of him. And he didn't use it as a crutch, but he was just there. It gave him the foundation to then go and call a great game. And I saw the grind, too. You have a late game, 15 innings, and you're back at the ballpark the next day, and you fly. And Joe Castiglione was definitely somebody who meant a lot to me because I just I know him so well. But I'd say those two.
Thanks for being here. I understand your pain when you talk about the Knicks. I'm a Browns fan, so that's pretty tough. So I have 2 questions. So first of all, if you can play with any athlete, like dead or alive, who would it be? And also, what is your favorite sports movie?
My favorite sports movie? I'd say my favorite sports film is a documentary called Hoop Dreams. Hoop Dreams is amazing to the way that, back in the 90s, they were able to embed themselves with these 2 young kids in Chicago. And now we kind of take long-form documentaries for granted in some way. But back then, that was a tremendous accomplishment for them to be able to finance that movie, make the movie. And I love how it doesn't really work out for the kids in the end. It's not the Hollywood ending where they get drafted #1. Like, that's real life happening in front of you. I think Hoop Dreams still holds up, is amazing. And then who do I want to like play sports with? I don't know, everyone. I somehow worked it out for myself a couple years ago where I was a guest member of the New York Knicks 7th Avenue squad. Do you know who the 7th Avenue? They're the ones who like run on the court and like shoot t-shirt guns and stuff. So like I did that, and just to be on the floor of a Knick game like while they were losing was awesome. Like, obviously they lost to Toronto that night. Like, why would they win? But that rush just to be on the floor at the Garden was super killer. So I'll go be a cheerleader at the Knick game whenever.
That's it. All right, guys. Well, everybody go check out Real Fan Life on the Players Tribune. Ben, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. Cool.